Good morning. It's June 5th. This is a Thursday. My name is Chris, and this is Tech Talk Today, and we have a fun show lined up. It's an open mic episode. The Mumble Room is invited to chime in on any of the stories as we go along, and I'm going to attempt to make it a little shorter to address some feedback we've gotten to see how you guys like that. This show is a grand experiment, and it is our fourth episode, the last episode of the week. And I think it's been a good first week. I think it's been pretty good, and you guys have all been great. I've really enjoyed everybody who showed up in our Mumble Room for each show. So why don't we start, because people seem to like the headlines. We'll start with the headlines, and then we'll get into the discussion piece. The first one, I don't know if you guys have heard about this. It's called Reset the Net, and it kicks off today, and it's essentially reminiscent of the SOPA movement to sort of push against government surveillance. I'll play a little clip of it, and then we can talk about it.
We use the internet to be ourselves, but governments are building a prison around it. We have to stop them. But how? They seem so vast and powerful. But government spies have a weakness. They can hack anybody, but they can't hack everybody. Folks like the NSA depend on collecting insecure data from tapped fiber. They depend on our mistakes. Mistakes we can fix. The plan? Reset the net. Together,
on June 5th, 1 year after Snowden's first NSA story, we all take one powerful step to turn off government spying and turn on freedom.
the call is simple. Find some territory of the internet that you can protect from prying eyes. Seize it and hold it. Are you a developer? Promise to add one NSA-resistant feature to your app. Are you an internet user? Promise to try one NSA-resistant privacy tool.
Got a website or Tumblr? Run our splash screen on June 5th to show the world we're resetting the net.
This is our moment to rally and realize our power. Without needing anyone's permission, we can decide our future, one that's safe, open, and free. It won't be easy, but if we work hard now, the internet will never be a prison. Reset the net. Are you in? Sign up.
So this is obviously not a super popular one, since it doesn't seem anybody in the Mumble Room has heard of, but they are getting a pretty good uptake. They've got a lot of people on board, and they've also incorporated here's a WordPress plugin or a Tumblr extension or whatever you call it, to automatically add this splash page to your website, all us, stop SOPA type stuff. Guys, am I the only one that's kind of feeling a little fatigued on this kind of stuff? Has this become the new avatar change on your Twitter account? Because
We may seem fatigued, but the point is, you want to get the message out to as many people as possible, because only a small percentage is going to respond. So getting the word out is important. I saw it on DuckDuckGo, and I feel like it's a good move. You gotta get the word out.
Yeah, I do like raising awareness. And the other thing that I think these big splash pages are more functional than just changing your avatar, because a lot of times now they're incorporating information you can use to take action. Contact your congressperson, or here's a phone number, or here's a link to read more. And it's more than just an avatar change, because the person can be hit in the face with, oh my gosh, this is a thing that's going on that this website that I care about thinks is important enough to smack me in the face with, and here's a link I can go find out more information. Now, who knows how many people actually click that link?
I wish they would comment more, though, on it's not just NSA. It's anyone and everyone can track you and take advantage of your information, like the persuading idea in the marketing, where if they think that you want something bad enough, they'll raise the price more. That's just it's more than just the NSA.
We played that last night in the Unfiltered Supporters show. And it's pretty creepy. Like they'll look at your past browsing habits and figure out what your price point is, and they'll raise it or lower it. It's dynamic price fixing. Now, see, the other thing something about this doesn't ring quite right with me with this Reset the Net, because some of the companies involved are some of the companies that are guilty of tracking us and invading our privacy. Dropbox,
like Google.
Yeah. And so, how do I square this exactly? I'm not quite sure how to square this up. I still anything that gets the word out, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, one thing I was just thinking about was, you got Google is on there, but and they've just released this Chrome extension to encrypt your Google
the end-to-end
Gmail
encryption,
account.
right? Yep.
End-to-end encryption. I'm just like you were saying yesterday. There's a certain amount of strange weirdness about it, because they can auto-update it with a hole at any point in time they want to.
Or maybe this is Google's way of saying, hey, we're not on board with what the NSA is doing. And maybe
it very well could be. Maybe they haven't been the entire time.
Right.
And
in fact, something that kind of leads to that indication is TechCrunch ran an article. This is Alex Willem over at TechCrunch. And they found in that end-to-end encryption extension, Google's put it out asking developers to look at the code. In there's a little Easter egg that kind of is a bit of a middle finger to the NSA. In one of the lines, in this Chrome extension code, they have a comment that says, -SSL added and removed here with a smiley face, which is a direct reference to the current efforts NSA slide that had SSL added and removed here with a smiley face when they were talking about penetrating the Google data center. So Google sort of was like a little bit of, hey, we're building this. I think this kind of says we're building this because of you in a way. They're right there in the code. It's a little bit of a middle finger to the NSA. And that's a stronger...
I saw a little thing on Google Plus, and it's like, finally, do no evil is prevailing.
I mean, I wonder, honestly, if Google makes end-to-end encryption a reality, it's a good open source extension. And, I was thinking about last night as I was driving home from episode 100 of Unfiltered, by the way, everybody. Hey-oh. And, yeah. And I was thinking, what stories really are on my mind from this week that we've covered on Tech Talk today. And two of them, we're going to get to one of them. But the first one is this Google end-to-end encryption. Like this, the ramifications here and potentially the statement that Google is making cannot be overlooked. I think this could be huge, but I want to watch it. So I'm sitting back from afar and kind of waiting to see how it plays out and see what the community thinks about the code quality and all those kinds of things. But I think it has the potential to fundamentally change the way Google makes their money by reading our emails and selling us ads. And if your email is encrypted, they can't analyze that. And they can't, so they are essentially harming their revenue potential by releasing this extension. That is, what I always say is actions speak louder than words. I made that up.
Maybe they realize they're not making as much money off of the Gmail ads as they are on the actual website, like actual searches.
I'm sure, yeah. Or they figure they have more in terms of revenue to lose from people bailing because of privacy issues.
And they're really pissed at the NSA.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what this Easter egg is saying is, screw you guys. And I say, right on, Google. Right on. Fight the fight.
Get out of here.
Get at it. You know what they're saying? They're saying, hey, Google.
Get it out of here.
That's what they're saying. All right, moving on. That was the longest headline yet. How about this one? Follow up to the encryption story for the Googs. Remember when they named and shamed some ISPs? AOL was top on the list and Comcast was on the bottom of the list. Well, Comcast released a statement saying they plan to work with Google to encrypt email exchange between its own servers and Gmail. This is according to a Comcast spokesperson who said this Tuesday night. Comcast supports TLS encryption for email messages, and Comcast employees plan to ramp up Gmail's encryption support to Gmail in the next few weeks. Now, this is all being spoken out. This is all being posted on a spokesperson's Twitter account. You can go find the link to that in the show notes. And they'll reveal more details at the Messaging, Malware, and Mobile Anti-Abuse Working Group meeting next week. Now, see, I've been thinking about E3 next week, but apparently the conference I should have been thinking about is the Messaging, Malware, and Mobile Anti-Abuse Working Group. That sounds like a blast. It's going to be in Brussels, and Comcast is also, by the way, a meeting sponsor. So good for Comcast. Turning on TLS. I like to see it. All right, here's one that I've been watching brew for a little bit, but we've finally gotten some actual numbers. Sprint agrees to buy T-Mobile for $32 billion. That's about $40 per share for T-Mobile US. This is a person familiar with the matter who broke the story to Reuters, last night, signaling this is coming to an end in a long and complicated deal to merge the third and fourth largest U.S. wireless carriers. At that price point, about 17% premium to the carrier's Wednesday close, T-Mobile would be worth around $32 billion in total. Deutsche Telekom owns 67% of T-Mobile and is expected to keep 15 to 20% stake of the combined company as part of the deal. This is according, again, to the source, who is anonymous, talking to Reuters. So we'll see. And the New York Times is also running this story now. So, of course, this is regulator pending, right? They have to review a merger like this. I suspect because of each company's relative size, they would probably let it go through. Early rumors are that Sprint would become the dominant company. But a lot of the management infrastructure, and this is just rumors, but a lot of the management infrastructure would be replaced by T-Mobile management, like the CEO and things like that would come over from T-Mobile and helm the ship, but the brand Sprint would remain the top brand, and they would then somehow combine the networks. Anybody, sir?
Does this mean I can bring my T-Mobile phone to Ting?
I don't know. I don't know what it means for the MVNOs. That's a good question.
So this is crazy because T-Mobile's GSM and Sprint is CDMA, so I don't know what they're going to do with their infrastructure.
Well, they'll probably just go to one common LTE standard, I would think.
Oh,
Yeah, I would think they would dual band it.
See, Sprint's in an interesting position because they have a lot of towers, but their towers have a lot of different, they still have WiMAX in production, they've got traditional CDMA, they've got LTE, and Sprint's working on rolling out some HD audio LTE stuff and data-only calls, so they're working on all of that right now. I think Sprint's a pretty cool company in the sense, in terms of some of the things they've experimented with. Every wireless company, except with the exception of Ting, I pretty much disdain. So T-Mobile, I know a lot of people like to circle jerk T-Mobile. Personally, I think what T-Mobile has done is looked at Ting, and they have carbon copied exactly what Ting does, only on a larger stage, and essentially get exact attention for almost line-for-line things that Ting says. I actually find that to be despicable and disingenuous, so that makes me not like T-Mobile as much. Not only that, but I think the T-Mobile service sucks. I think their data speeds suck, and I like that they have some cheap plans, but at the end of the day,
I have no problem.
I know people like them. I'm like the only guy in the world that doesn't like T-Mobile, even though I've been a T-Mobile customer for years. I used to be, but whatever. But at the same time, I'm not a huge Sprint guy. I definitely hate Verizon Wireless, and I think AT&T is the devil. So don't ask me. Don't have. So
I just had a T-Mobile phone that I accidentally may have put through the washing machine, and now and pretty soon I'll be getting a Ting phone because you can compare prices and whatnot, but I mean, you nailed it on those other two companies. And as far as T-Mobile goes, it may not be as bad as those two, but Ting just revolutionizes the way the customer interacts with their provider, and that extra value is worth whatever cost savings I might have gotten by finding the absolute cheapest plan through T-Mobile.
That's how I feel.
Well, one thing I've got to mention is that, I am not happy with the phone T-Mobile sold me. I am happy with the service, but the phone, for some reason, they loaded it up with all sorts of
I hate that.
junk.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're talking in the main memory. So that leaves me with 512 megs that I could put apps on. And guess what? It fills up after putting Facebook on it. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, I know. I know we've talked about it.
Updating Chrome.
It's awful.
Sounds like you need to root that bad boy.
Well, here's the problem. It's an LG Optimus F6 or something like that. And I've looked everywhere. There is no way to root it because what will immediately happen is T-Mobile detects that, or LG or somebody detects that and unroots it.
So same thing here, and guess what the answer is? Getting a provider that isn't I don't know what the correct word is.
You got to get it. Well, see, the thing is, and then we'll move on because I got an Intel headline.
Hold on.
Okay, go ahead, Riley.
I was wondering how the data plans might change because Sprint is one of the few companies that don't throttle you after a certain amount of bandwidth usage, like for the unlimited data plan.
Right.
And T-Mobile does. So if their new CEO comes in, like he might put a stop to all that. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah,
I doubt it.
It's hard to say. I mean,
doubt it.
they're going to be in a pretty competitive position, so they kind of need to do whatever they can to differentiate. So I would be pretty surprised if they did that, but you never know.
Because I think T-Mobile has unlimited data, but they throttle you after 5 gigs or something like that. So
get it out
I
of
doubt
here.
they would do the throttling anymore.
Next headline, Intel. This is another Intel story. We talked about that i7's going to be running at 5 gigahertz. Well, they're all showing off because they're at Computex. And it doesn't matter, guys. We're done talking about mobile. You want to know why? We're now living in the post-mobile world. That's right, because Intel's going to bring us truly wireless PCs in 2016. This is their post-Broadwell plan. I don't know how crazy this is. I mean, this sounds kind of crazy to me. Intel's just putting everything in these chips now. On stage at Computex, Intel's Kirk Slagan, Senior Vice President and General Manager of the PC Client Group, demonstrated wireless display docking and charging features that will close the loop on the final few mandatory cables in a typical PC environment. The high-speed technology is called WiGig. The standard will be used in short-range docking technology, instantly creating a connection to a screen and peripherals when the device is moved within range and then swapping back out to standalone usage just by picking up and walking away. WiGig delivers speeds up to 7 gigabits per second. For power, they demonstrated a resonance magnetic charging technology promoted by the Alliance for Wireless Group that Intel is also aligned with. The system can be installed under a table or a surface with magnetic resonance capable of charging through 2 inches of wood. So you could have it under your, under your desk. You just put your laptop on your desk and it starts charging. Now, this technology is expected in the second half of 2015, and it's likely to have devices based on Intel's reference designs to actually hit the market in 2016.
So the future.
Yeah.
We're living in the future.
I love the idea of just bringing my laptop to the table here, setting down on the table and being like, boom, I am now charging, and I don't have to hook up any other wires. I mean, that's pretty cool. And I've seen Dell experiment. Have you guys ever seen that Dell where you would put it on a dock and it would wirelessly do USB and video and all of that? It was like a super expensive Dell laptop.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was pretty neat, and it worked, so...
So it sounds like this is going to be for Skylake then, post-Broadwell?
Yes, exactly.
Yep. So I'm wondering how long that would actually take to charge a laptop.
Yeah,
doing it wireless, because it takes forever for phones to charge wirelessly.
Yeah, it'd almost be like a sipper just to keep it charged, I bet. All right, well, our last headline today is a story from Microsoft. Check this out. A software update for the Xbox One is unlocking more GPU bandwidth for developers. No hardware changes necessary. They're just doing it via a software update. Now, you might be saying, well, what? How is this possible, Chris? Well, I'll tell you. Microsoft says the new firmware will help developers extract more power from the system's GPU, even though everything in the base system is staying the same. As far back as last October, Microsoft was publicly acknowledging how Connect and system processing took a conservative 10% of time-sliced reservation for the GPU processor for the Connect and the rendering of concurrent system content such as Snap Mode. Back then, the company promised it would be opening up that slice of processing time to game developers in the future in a way that wouldn't impact background performance processing. This appears to be what has happened with this update, which is also kind of indicated by a statement released by Microsoft. And they say that developers will have a choice now to access additional GPU power or take advantage of Connect features. So it sounds like there's a possibility that if you use this, that's about 10% increase in GPU performance, roughly. I would be surprised if it actually works out to be that. But if you use that, no Connect for you. No voice Connect for you, at least. Kind of interesting, though.
I find that is interesting. I think they need every ounce they can get because one of the hardware websites did a breakdown of both the PS4 and the Xbox One, and they found that they have the same chips from AMD, but the PS4 has 50% more GPU cores.
50? No.
50%.
No way.
Yeah, I'll find the link later, but it's crazy, and I'm sure this is why they're doing that, so they can make up that difference.
Yeah, that is huge. Wow. Yeah, that would be why. I would assume, and they always said at least since October that they were going to. So it's not like I don't really think it's like a competitive response necessarily, other than it's just something they needed to do.
So let me get this straight.
Yeah.
This entire time they've been throttling back the GPU.
Well, I guess
intentionally?
in a sense, right? They were using that to render things for the Kinect and that multitasking Snap Mode. And I guess they just wanted to be able to ensure that those particular features would function within a certain expected, parameter. And then they're allowing game developers to turn it off.
Is Twit.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's kind of ironic because that's one of the 2 features nobody actually cares about.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So that little twit bump there was a little hint of what we're going to talk about next. As some feedback from viewer Mark, who wrote in today at jupiterbroadcasting.com. That's the email address. Did you know? Today at jupiterbroadcasting.com. You can also go to the contact page and choose Tech Talk Today from the drop-down before we get to Mark's email, and then thus that little twit bump there. I got to holler at my patrons. Look at what... Oh, hi there. Oh, hi. Oh, not that. No, not that. That right there. There we go. 112 patrons for the Tech Talk Today show, bringing us to $1,155 per month and 33 cents. Now, we are so close. That means we have reached our 2 first milestones, which is amazing. We are just a few dollars away from this show remaining sponsor-free. If we get to the next milestone, then I'm not even gonna return those emails about sponsoring.
$44.67.
That's it, man.
And Chris, that means that now you have to have a good weekend.
I know, I will. No, you're not kidding. I really will. And really, this is awesome because this isn't just about this show. This is about supporting the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. And this is I'm really I feel like, I have a sense of how response is to when you launch a new show, and I feel like across the board, there's already a community assembling around the show in the subreddit, techtalktoday.reddit.com, and here in the Mumble. I'm already getting a lot of positive comments. The Patreon is doing really well, and honestly, all of it together is just making me super excited about keep doing it. And I just have so many freaking ideas for the show. Like we were talking on the pre-show about next week. Next week is E3. That runs Tuesday through Thursday, and we're going to be able to pull out great stuff that happens every day at E3 and cover it right here on Tech Talk Today, integrate it with the rest of our coverage, and then the week after that's Google I.O. I mean, we couldn't have launched this. We had WWDC this week, E3 next week, and then Google I.O. I mean, the month of June is the perfect month to launch Tech Talk Today, and if you're enjoying this show, go over to patreon.com/today, become a patron, and help us get to that ad-free milestone. Oh, man, that'd be awesome. And honestly, for a daily show, it's nice to keep it nice and tight and just focus on the content. So I'd be all down for that. And also, you're supporting the network. We have different pledge levels there. And I mentioned that, we've got that swag pledge level. We had a bunch of people jump in. And I'm just going to say this. Jump in over the weekend, and I think we're going to do our first batch, and we're going to kind of capture where it's at, starting probably on Monday or so. And we actually assumed not that many would sell yet, so we already ordered a batch of the new swag, and it's super cool. I can't wait to show it to you guys. So we're going to order another batch on Monday. So if you want to get in at the swag level, get your pledge in by this weekend over at patreon.com/today. Scroll down, you'll see the different pledge levels there. To get in the swag club, hook us up, and we'll hook you up because we really appreciate that level of support. And just so you know, my wife has become the swag hag of Jupiter Broadcasting. It's all she's thinking about these days because she's got great ideas. And the swag we have for Tech Talk Today will be perfect for a morning show. I'll just leave it at that. So that'll go out to our patrons that pledge at that level, the swag club level. Patreon.com/today. Thanks, everybody, for helping us get to our first 2 milestones. Wouldn't it be awesome to get to that ad-free milestone? And we're so close. I think that'd be great for a daily show. Patreon.com/today. All right, so Mark wrote into today at jupiterbroadcasting.com. He says, Chris, the Security Now podcast with Steve Gibson has an interview with Brett Glass, who runs an ISP in Wyoming. And he links to the interview here. And he says, the interview starts at such and such, and I'll have a link in the show notes for you guys. What's interesting is Brett quotes wording from Title II, where we would classify ISPs as common carriers, showing how it would have the exact opposite outcome of what the internet community generally wants. It builds on the idea of multiple tiers of service. After listening to this interview, I have changed my stance, and I believe that ISPs should be treated like an electric utility, where the consumer pays for the consumption. I realize that may affect my bill in a way I don't like, but it makes the most sense. Please give it a listen and possibly refer to others for getting a deeper understanding. I'm going to play just a minute of it, and then we'll talk about it here for a second.
It seems really clear to me that one of the problems we have is that consumers don't really understand the notion of bandwidth. They haven't been trained. They haven't been taught. They don't get that texting uses no bandwidth and watching a movie is completely different from texting or web surfing. So there isn't that notion. And so it seems to me that some of this is consumer expectation, which right now consumers have been pampered.
So they will make the argument, and to Leo's credit, Leo plays a very good devil's advocate in this episode, that this guy who runs an ISP will make the argument that the fairest way to regulate the internet is just per usage billing. It sounds so somebody who uses a crap ton of bandwidth because I'm broadcasting 24/7 and I download a lot of my content and all of my podcasts. That worries me. But it was a compelling episode, so I'll have it linked. I've got it. They've clipped it down to just an 18-minute clip, and it's kind of long, but I have it linked in the show notes if you guys want to check it out. Okay, one last bit of feedback, and then we'll get to our last discussion point, because I did want to talk about the WWDC thing, but really quick. Because I figure probably a few people are wondering, Skullplate wrote into the Tech Talk Today subreddit, the T3 subreddit. He says, why no intro music? I'm just curious. Have you been wondering why there's no intro music? Yeah. Same reason why I'd rather not have ads. It's a daily show. I want to keep the file size as small as possible for you, keep the length just right on the content for you. I'm trying to respect your time. And also, I'm trying to be genuine to the medium in a sense. This show is an experiment. We don't have to pretend like we're radio. You know, we don't, hello, Chris here in the morning with you. Hi, everybody. No, we don't have to do that. I mean, that's just silly. It's just, we don't have to play radio. Let's just have a conversation when I get in the morning, and we'll record it, and we'll talk about the headlines I'm watching and you guys are watching, and we'll put it out for download. And maybe down the road, I'll change my mind, and I'll find a song that I think is just perfect to get us pumped, and then I'll play it. But for right now, I'm experimenting with a show that is just absolutely brutally honest with itself about what it is. Because that's just how I am in the morning. Okay. So the other thing that's been sticking with me, and then we'll wrap up. I think I failed on my goal to make this a short show. But and I don't think next week's going to be better. So before we get to the last thing on my mind, I just did want to mention we have the Unfilter 100 shirts and hoodies available. If you go to patreon.com or teespring.com/unfilter100, we've got hoodies and t-shirts for episode 100, and it is a cool shirt. Angela worked on this design, and I really like it. It's got the camera, the Unfilter logo, and then a special 100 edition. If you'd like to grab one, teespring.com/unfilter100, 12 days, 15 hours left. Just wanted to mention that because I'm pretty proud of 100 weeks of Unfilter. And this episode is going to get there faster than you think. We're already on episode 4. All right, so you guys, I can't get over it. Popey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I think Apple nailed Convergence this week. I think what I saw, where it is each device is true to itself, but they have the ability to hand off between each other wirelessly when they're within range, I think is the kind of convergence that appeals to me. And let me tell you why. What it allows for is that when you're creating an app for your smartphone and you're creating an app for the desktop, they're each 100% genuine to themselves. The app on the smartphone always knows it has an accelerometer, a GPS, a camera, and a data connection. And it always knows what its screen size is, and the designers can target that specifically. It always knows what its processor is. It always knows what its GPU is. And then the desktop application has all of those same attributes. So they're true to their genuine space, but yet they're fully communicative. And what Apple demoed was the ability to hand off things between applications. They called it Handoff, surprisingly. I know, pretty clever, right? They really thought that one through. And I want to I'll play a clip a little bit here. We won't play a whole bunch because I know we're running late. I'm sorry. But if you didn't watch this and you don't care that much, I want you to hear just a little bit of this so that way you know what we're talking about. Oh, I guess they call it continuity and handoff. It's complicated. I don't know.
It's called continuity.
There you go.
So now at Apple, we believe you should be able to use the right device for the moment. Maybe your phone when you're on the go. Your iPad when you want to kick back on the couch. Or maybe your Mac when you're trying to get some work done. But we also want the transitions between these moments to be absolutely as natural and seamless as possible. Now, our continuity features start with something simple, and that's AirDrop, because now AirDrop works between iOS and the Mac. It's really convenient. But now we have something where we really take it to the next level, and it's called Handoff. So it turns out now that when you're working on your Mac, your devices around you in proximity are aware of each other and are aware of what you're up to. And so if you want to pick up where you left off on your Mac, on your iPad, well, your iPad is prompting you right in the lower left of the screen. Just swipe up, and you can pick up working on what you're working on your Mac right on your iPad. And this works in the other direction as well. So let's say you're composing an email. Walk up to your Mac. Well, your Mac will notice what you're doing and prompt you right on the dock. You click it, and you can pick up finishing that message right on your Mac.
All right, so you get the idea. You can watch the whole clip from The Verge in the show notes if you want.
Does this rely on near-field communication?
I'm assuming it's Wi-Fi, maybe Bluetooth.
Okay.
That's how AirDrop operates over Wi-Fi, I believe. I've never used it, but that's my understanding. And I want to also make a caveat here that I don't know if it's going to be Apple Handjob that's the one that works, or if Google comes up with something, or if it's what Ubuntu Touch is going to do. They're all completely different approaches. However, This one strikes me as the most practical solution for like the next several years at least. And what's also compelling about it is they're going to ship it. I mean, they're going to ship it in the fall. Like, it's actually going to be a product that we can, in scale, all go get our hands on. And I can't, after all of WWDC all week, I can't help shake the feeling that this is the proper style of convergence, because it means that a mobile app is a really good mobile app, and a desktop app can be a really good desktop app. But using cloud services or using Wi-Fi or whatever the particular technology is, the two applications remain completely in sync. And I've been doing something lately. For this entire week, I've been experimenting with not bringing a laptop home with me. I have everything synced up over BitTorrent Sync and Dropbox here at the studio and at my house. And then I wrap up for the day, and also Chrome and Google Docs help with this too. I wrap up here at the day, I get in the truck, I drive home, and I sit back down and I wrap up a couple other things from my home office, never bringing a device in between, because everything's just syncing up through the cloud, and it just seems so obvious that this is the way it's going to go. And I kind of look at what Microsoft's done with quote-unquote convergence. I mean, let's tip of the hat here to Canonical for obviously nailing a trend. That's got to be, I mean, some of that's got to be Shuttleworth.
Possibly before it was even a trend.
Yeah.
Like trend setting, perhaps.
Right. And I mean, this isn't the first time they've done this either. I've been reading old Linux news stories, and Mark had some really poignant things to say about Qt back in like 2008. I mean, so my point is, though, it doesn't necessarily mean the execution is right. Because obviously we watched Microsoft's execution, and they're trying to come up with one device that does everything, and it's not working that great. And I'm not so sure that, part of me loves the idea of having a really powerful phone that does everything. But then part of me is a realist that says, I just don't really see that working. First of all, if it's a carrier-controlled device, if the carrier makes a deal with Canonical and they customize the device and they brand it in a sense, like, say, let's take Verizon. They put big red, they make everything red, and they give you, because it's Verizon, they pre-install the VCast app and the ESPN app and all that kind of stuff. And maybe they customize a few things here and there. Well, I'm not going to want to use that as my desktop. Screw that. No way would I want that on my desktop. I don't even want that on my phone. But for some reason, a lot of us accept it, like the situation Eric's in. But Eric, imagine that situation on your desktop. And could you blame the carriers? What a sweet-ass deal for them. Man, not only do they get your mobile, but now they're also controlling your desktop. That is huge for the carriers. And if they could get in on the payment angle of that too, boy, then they got your desktop, they got your phone, and they're doing your payment processing. Hey-oh!
In what way are you envisaging that you will have to have the mobile stuff on your desktop?
I would imagine that for me, I could always go grab, some stock Ubuntu image, ISO or image file and flash it to my device. But for every other regular consumer, when they go buy a Verizon LG fancy thingy, from 2016 that's got Ubuntu Touch on it, it's going to be carrier crapped up. It's going to have the Verizon App Store. It's going to have all the VCast apps on it. It's going to be crapped up. I mean, in one sense, that's the advantage of the Ubuntu Touch platform for carriers, is they can brand it, they can own it, they can make it theirs, they can, they can differentiate at a level that Android doesn't offer, and obviously iOS doesn't offer, or Windows Mobile, or BlackBerry.
But how does that relate to the convergence angle?
Well, because that customization would be present in all the use cases.
Right, but if I'm struggling to find the use case. I can see where you're typing an email and you move it to your desktop, or you're in the middle of reading a document, or you're in the middle of watching a film, or whatever. One of those use cases where it makes sense to flip between the desktop and the phone. I'm struggling to see how the carrier could do something.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, like,
it would
if you're
compelling to do that.
So let's take this Apple example where the guy says, okay, you're writing an email, and your iPhone detects your Mac, blah blah blah, and they do a hand job, and then you can resume your email on the Mac. That would probably be, my number one scenario, right? Like, I start an email here at the studio. I'm like, I'm going to finish this when I get home. I put the phone in my pocket, and then I get home. I put my phone in my dock, and I want to resume my email. I could see that as a really, in the carrier customization isn't going to interfere with that. What's going to interfere is when I'm using it as my desktop and I have their crap apps or their crap theme or their crap app store or their crap whatever. And for me, again, I'll just flash it and I'll just use a stock image. But for a lot of people, it's going to take that carrier customization all the way to the desktop experience. And I guess what my point is I'm just not convinced it's going to be a fantastic experience that's going to compel a lot of people to want to use it as their main daily driver. Now, if it's not your main machine, then this feature becomes a lot less useful. And again, I go back to maybe something that's a little more in the middle, a little more pragmatic, a little more practical, and that's this Apple Handoff technology. I just happen. I wish. And again, I think it'll come to other platforms too. And AirDroid offers a lot of this on Android already. I want to qualify that. I'm not sucking Tim Cook's D right here, but I do think this is a more realistic, deliverable product that consumers will obviously understand and begin working with.
If I can interrupt for a moment here. Chris, I think you're missing a very important thing here. If I were right now to go into Best Buy and pick up an off-the-shelf laptop or a desktop, it's going to have a crap load of apps pre-installed.
Right.
Probably toolbar in the
that's
browser.
True. It already happens, is what you're saying.
It's going to probably have some apps installed. Yeah. So it's not like this is completely a new thing on the desktop.
That could also be why the PC industry is falling apart and MacBook sales are through the roof.
I think Chris has a point here, because realistically, while it does come with crap, you don't have to use it, but that carrier stuff is so invasive, even on Android, that it would be so frustrating to have that as your computer desktop.
Exactly. That's what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, 1.5 GB of my regular storage space is used up by the crapware that both LG and T-Mobile load on there. And quite honestly, I don't want to see my Ubuntu desktop in pink.
Well, all right, there we go. That's probably a good spot to end it on, because like the chat room says, we're going long. And I think, I want to also say that I would be really curious to see where this customization does go. Perhaps I'm overreacting. So we'll see where it goes. All of this is yet to be determined. It's nothing set in stone yet. But we do have everybody kind of working on Convergence. Obviously, Microsoft's pitching it hard with the Surface 3. And they're really selling, this is one device that does it all. And now here's Apple with their take on Convergence. And you've got Canonicals. And they're all different. And they all have a very valid argument. And then they have a lot of counter arguments. They all have a lot of counter arguments. Like, obviously, the iOS one would be the massive lock-in and how it's going to be restricted to only certain apps that have developed on those APIs. It's going to be a very limited solution. I mean, there's the obvious knock there. And the Google one would be all the Google anti-stuff. So, and then, of course, the Microsoft one's obvious. I mean, they all have good counter arguments and they all have good pro arguments. And that's what's so damn fascinating about it. That's why we talk about it right there. Oh, one last bit of business. It sucks. It's balls. But speaking of the Apple stuff, Tech Talk Today is now in the iTunes store. I don't know why it didn't pick up the artwork. We'll be working on that. I'm sorry. Our badge is super cool, and I would appreciate iTunes to making that S work. But the feed is now in iTunes if you want to grab it. I've had a few people write in and be like, hey, Chris, what's up with iTunes, man? And then they shamefully admit, yeah, I know I use iTunes. I'm sorry. And they always apologize. And it's like, dude, whatever works, man. I don't care. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining me, and thanks to everybody who showed up all week. There we go. Tech Talk Today, first week of the grand experiment is in the can. And since we are sponsor-free right now, well, we actually haven't technically reached that, but I'm holding out to see if we make it there. So I've been picking ads. This week, or today, to wrap us up, instead of picking an ad, I'm going to go a little retro on you. It's about a minute long, and it's a look back at the way computers used to be, and it's so long ago that even the terminology is different.
Occupying the entire first floor of Building 3 at the Homedale Laboratories, the Computer Center requires some 20,000 square feet of space to house its equipment and peripheral services. The main computer, which is used for batch work, is the IBM 370 Model 165 with 3 million bytes of core, 2 million of which are available for programmer use. Sharing the computer center with the 165 is an IBM 370 Model 155, a 360 Model 20 and associated peripheral equipment. Let's follow a job through the center and explore some of the various facilities available to the home Dell programmer.